Hello friends, this is your host from War Chronicle. Welcome to our channel where we try to answer the great geographic what-if questions of the world, so let's get into it. Why does the Middle East keep having wars? You're about to find out. The question of why the Middle East keeps having wars is a very important one. Okay, so first of all, in order to talk about why the Middle East keeps having wars, we need to decide what do I mean by the Middle East. In 1945, India got its independence from the British. From 1992 to 2001, there was the Bosnian War and the Kosovo War. Number 1, oil. There is a lot of oil in the Middle East, and oil is very valuable. For example, Sunni Islam and Shia Islam, each group believes that their version of the religion is the correct version, and sometimes that has led to conflict. For example, the conflict between Israel and Palestine in part stems from each group wanting to claim the land of Israel as their own. Lots of countries outside the Middle East have interests in the Middle East, and they will intervene to protect those interests. For example, the French, British, and Portuguese used to have colonies in the Middle East, and they used to fight wars to protect those colonies. Today, the US and the Soviet Union no longer exist, but their sphere of influence still remains in the region. The US wants to contain the spread of communism in the Middle East, much like they did during the Cold War. This is one reason why the US invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. The US also wants to protect its allies in the region such as Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Saudi Arabia and Israel are US allies because they are both anti-communist, and also they are both rivals of Iran. Jordan is a US ally because it is an important hub for the region. It is also strategically important to the US because it neighbors Israel. Another example is the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Saudi Arabia is the home of Islam's holiest sites, and they are considered the leader of Sunni Islam. Iran is considered the leader of Shia Islam. There has long been tension between the two. Recently, it has increased when Saudi Arabia executed a Shia Muslim cleric who was close to Iran. As a result, Iran has been supporting the Houthi rebels in Yemen to attack Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has been supporting the government of Yemen in order to fight the Houthi rebels. This conflict has spread into Iraq and Syria as well, causing massive instability in both countries. It's made the countries that have it very rich, and it's made the countries that do and have it very jealous. Not only does this lead to tension between the countries in the region, but it also makes it easy for governments to blame outside forces for their own domestic problems. For example, Egypt blames Israel and the West for all of the problems that it faces today. Also, the fact that there are multiple countries in the Middle East that have oil has created competition in the region. For example, the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which each want to be the top dog in the region. This has caused them to support proxy conflicts around the region in order to advance their interests. For example, Saudi Arabia supports the government of Yemen, while Iran supports the Houthi rebels who are trying to overthrow the Yemeni government. In 2001, the US invaded Afghanistan. In 2003, the US invaded Iraq. From 2011 to 2017, there was the Syrian civil war. In 2011 to 2012, there was the Egyptian revolution. In 2014, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant seized a bunch of territory in Syria and Iraq. In 2015, the Saudi Arabian-led intervention in Yemen began. In 2021, the Taliban took over Afghanistan again. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. And I'm sure there were many smaller rebellions and terrorist attacks that I have uneven included here. Then in 1948, Israel was founded. That led to the Arab-Israeli conflict that still exists today. In 1952, Egypt overthrew its monarchy and became a republic. In 1953, Iran overthrew its monarchy and became an Islamic republic. In 1958, Iraq overthrew its monarchy and briefly became a republic until it was taken over by a military dictatorship. In 1962, Yemen was taken over by a communist military dictatorship. In 1967, the Six-Day War happened. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War happened. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution happened. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. This led to the creation of the Mujahideen, who were trained by the CIA and given Stinger missiles to use against the Soviet Union. Those same Mujahideen would later cause problems for the region, when they launched a civil war against the government of Afghanistan after the Soviets left. Is it just the countries that are physically in the Middle East? Or is it the countries that behave like they are in the Middle East? And for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to define the Middle East as the countries that physically exist in the Middle East and also the United States and Israel, because those two countries have been at war in a sense for the past 20 years. And let's also establish, what do I mean by war? There are different types of conflicts in the world, from civil wars to international wars. Now, I didn't put World War I as the starting point, just because I wanted to start with the 20th century. But World War I really was a watershed moment for the region. The Ottoman Empire, which ruled over most of the Middle East prior to World War I, collapsed during the war, and afterwards the victorious powers divided up the Middle East among themselves. Britain got control of Iraq, Jordan and Palestine, and France got control of Syria and Lebanon. These areas were not populated by Arab people at the time. They were mostly populated by Kurds, Assyrians, Armenians, and other ethnic groups. Britain and France basically said, hey, we are going to rule over these people. To do that, we need to change the demographics of the region. So what they did was they started importing people from the Arabian Peninsula, who were culturally more similar to the people who lived in those regions than the Kurds or the Assyrians. This had long-term consequences that led to some resentment from the non-Arab ethnic groups in the region. The Middle East has had both, so for the purposes of this video, I'm going to talk about both kinds. Okay, so now that we have established the parameters of this discussion, let's get into it. So these are all the wars and coups in the Middle East, since the end of World War I anyway. After World War II, the countries of the Middle East started getting their independence from European colonial rule. In the 1980s, there was the Iran-Iraq War. In 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. In 1991, the Persian Gulf War happened. The way I see it, there are four major factors that make the Middle East the most war-torn region of the planet. Number 2, religion. There are three major religions that came out of the Middle East: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There are also lots of sects of those religions. No. 3, lack of water. The Middle East is a very dry place. Water is scarce. And no, for foreign influence. Alright, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe.